Hello, it's Lion here with Hobbies and Man once again, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit weird, maybe different, but something that I've seen other people do before in some fashion. So I've seen a lot of stationery / fountain pen YouTubers make ink exploration videos. And so usually what they do is they just show off different inks and they correlate them to something. I've seen one where a woman is like, I have this scarf and I have these inks that match the scarf. So she, did this video where she would look at the scarf, she would take the scarf, and then she would match it to 5 fountain pen inks and show you how they write. So I thought about it, and how do I connect fountain pens and manga? Now, manga has words in it, and I've seen videos where people copy down song lyrics. So what if we ink explore through manga? So I have 7 inks, I have 7 manga, and what I'm going to do is going to correlate one ink to one manga, tell you about the manga, and then pick specific quotes out of it in order to show you a writing sample. I also have a little brush, and we are going to do, writing samples and swatches, and these are the inks that are going to be mentioned here, and the pens. So we have jet black, green black, Aurora Borealis, Diamine Twilight, Diamine Rider's Blood, Midnight, and then Ancient Copper. And so they correlate to these manga. Actually, this is a light novel, which is a term that denotes basically the equivalent of a pulp novel for Japan and Korea. And it's really good, and I picked this instead of the comic book version because it almost matches exactly with the Writer's Blood sample that the bottle comes, showing you, right, through the name of it. So there we go. I'm going to have to change the setup a little bit and change the direction of things so that you guys can see that. But I wanted to have this initial shot here where I show you everything, together, right? So I'll see you guys once I set it up. Okay, so I think this is a good setup. So today we're going to be looking at Diamine Jet Black. This is a pretty basic black ink. I'm going to be using a Jinhao 159 to do the writing sample. And I will be doing a swatch with this very basic plastic and nylon bristled brush. It was like 30 cents at best. Here's what it looks like when I'm patient and writing relatively slow. And as you can see, there's not too much line variation there. And right there it says Record of Ragnarok. So that is going to be the manga we're going to be looking at today. So, Record of Ragnarok, written by Ashichika drawn by Ashichika with a story by Shinja Umemura, and the script here is by Takumi Fukui. So I'm not really sure what that means because I don't know what the difference between the story and the script are, but I think it has to do with like flow. So the guy comes up with a story, and then this other guy makes it so that it flows well, right? So yeah, Record of Ragnarok is a story about gods versus humans. And so the Ragnarok is an event where 13 gods face against 13 humans in order to decide the fate of humanity. And so this book opens with the gods, all of them, all of the mythological ones, gathered together, trying to cast a vote on whether humanity should live or die. Because of modern society, they actually have decided to end civilization. However, a half-god Valkyrie called Brunhilde shows up and declares that they should instead use the Ragnarok to decide if humanity lives or dies. And so we start the tournament. And we have 13 gods versus 13 humans. And at the end of this book, they actually tell you what 13 gods and 13 humans are going to fight. But it hasn't really played out exactly like this, right? So the order doesn't really matter, but this is supposed to be who's going to show up. And so far, there is an anime adaptation that has gotten up to the 5th fight, and the manga currently is up to the 7th fight, if I'm remembering correctly. But in English, we only have the first 6 volumes, which cover the first 4 fights, if I remember correctly. So here we're going to be looking at volume 1, and we're going to be looking at 2 or 3 specific scenes here where we get to see, first of all, this section here that explains, humanity's doom coming. Then we're gonna see here, a little explanation about what Ragnarok is, and then this, section here where Brunhilde taunts the gods into accepting the challenge, so that they are, kind of pridefully set into motion, so that they can have the fight. And the first fight here is represented by Thor, god of lightning, and this Chinese war general called Lu Bu, who is a very famous character from Chinese history or Chinese fantasy mythology, because he is one of the main characters in the Three Kingdoms stories. So there you go. I'm not gonna be able to hold the book open while I draw, so what I'm gonna do is just put this off to the side so I can look at it separately without having it in the way. So let's switch to more close view, and let's start writing. So first of all, let's do the label here. Let's see. That should be fine. So start with Diamine, jet black. And the manga is Record of Ragnarok. Okay. Let me do the swatch really quick. Hope I don't mess this up, because I'm looking through the camera and it feels dangerous to do so. So let's see how it works. Honestly, I don't like doing it with this brush, but it's better than using a bunch of Q-tips, so it'll have to work, right? So there you go. That's that right there. And let's get into the writing sample here. So I gotta switch this view again so you guys can see what I'm writing. Need to make sure not to get inky fingers, because I don't want to mess up my manga. This is honestly turning out to be a little bit harder than I thought, but it's not too bad. It's fine. The first quote goes, it is by the will of the gods, there you go. That's the first quote. And this is more or less just, introductory exposition stuff in order to get you excited for what's going to happen here. Honestly, I thought it was going to be a lot less text, so I think I'm going to leave it here with just those two. I think that should be enough. But let me see, honestly, how long the third section is. Because I think this is actually quite a good amount of text. Even though a lot of it is kind of repeated, I think it works. So let's see if that's good enough or not. So I think I'll leave it there. And let's move on to the next manga here. So, yeah. Okay, so that was ink number 1. Let's look at ink number 2, which will be Diamine Green Black. And in order to match this one to something, I decided to go with Kamen Rider, which is a pretty interesting series. This is the 50th anniversary edition for this specific manga, which actually adapts a show called Kamen Rider, written by this guy Shotaro Ishinomori, which adapted an earlier version of Ishinomori's work called Skullbound. And Kamen Rider is essentially a Japanese superhero, kind of like Spider-Man or the Blue Beetle. And it's actually kind of a precursor, or kind of came about at the same time as Power Rangers, because Power Rangers was also made by this guy in the original version, which was Super Sentai, which then got adapted in the 90s into American television, which we now know as the Power Rangers. Recently, there was a new movie that came out called Shin Kamen Rider, and it had very limited release here in the US. But, you know, you should still check your local theaters. They might still have it somewhere, and I definitely recommend you guys watch it. So, Kamen Rider is what happens when a man is accidentally, or actually forcefully, turned into a human insect hybrid cyborg against his will by this evil organization called Shocker. Turns out that this man somehow manages to get rid of the compulsions to follow their orders, and so he becomes their arch nemesis, using the powers that were given to him by Shocker to stop Shocker. And in this book, we actually get to see the first two Kamen Riders, Ichigo and V2, I think, or Ichigo and Nigo, I think is what it's called. Kamen Rider 1 and Kamen Rider 2. And the first Kamen Rider has these giant pectoral things that are basically artificial lungs that let him use the power of wind in order to gain strength, right? So let's look into it. Here we go. We have this kind of RoboCop situation here. And then finally, we get into one of the first scenes where he uses his powers. I need to make sure not to get ink all over my manga. This is harder than I thought. To tell you, I am the champion of justice sent by Mother Nature. I am Kamen Rider. That's the first bit of dialogue we're going to be looking at here. And then the second bit is this one here. A wind, cry, and howl, raise a maelstrom within me. Become a storm, Mother Nature. Your energy is my strength. And I think I had another one here somewhere, but I don't remember where I put it, so it's fine. We're just going to look at those two. And there you go. So that's Kamen Rider. And obviously he has this grasshopper theme, so I thought green-black would be a good color to match with this. So, yeah, let's use my Lamy Safari here to do the initial writing, and then I'll do the swatch, and we can get the writing sample, right? So, yeah. Hopefully this is not immensely boring to everyone. It is a lot harder to kind of make it work than I initially thought, but I think it's pretty interesting, and I think it's a good way for me to match my two hobbies into a serviceable, idea. So there you go. That's Diamine Green Black, and we have Kamen Rider. '50th anniversary, and I'll just leave that as ANIF version. Or I guess it should have been edition, but oh well, it's too late now. And let's do the swatch really quickly. actually looks a lot lighter than you would think, but I quite like it. It kind of has this like swampy vibe to it, and I like it. Honestly, I think Diamine should do a collaboration with Star Wars and kind of look at some of the scenes that George Lucas did, where he kind of creates these fake planets, right? And then he has these long establishing shots that allow you to see the planet before we get into it. I think they should take a look at those and create some inks that match them, right? Like imagine one that's like Dagobah, which is like this green that has like this like brown or kind of almost like beige undertone to it or sheen to it. And then one that's Mustafar, which would be like a black-red, but different from, you know, Oxblood. Kind of more similar to Ancient Copper, but with more red, if it's possible. And then you could have one which is like Naboo, which is, you know, green-blue. And I think it would be really, really cool. But honestly, maybe, you know, it would be really expensive to get Star Wars to agree, or, you know, Disney to agree to make a Star Wars collaboration for Diamine. But I think it'd be really, really cool. And I would buy those for sure. So, yeah. Let's do the writing sample here. Yeah, this manga is kind of old, so it's not really the best thing ever, but what you get out of it is a pretty interesting kind of classic look at, you know, Japanese superheroes, but also kind of the origins to so many things that are kind of common in the modern Japanese, you know, cultural zeitgeist, right? So if you're ever interested in manga and stuff, you'll actually see, and a lot of them reference Kamen Rider, you know, whether it's doing a transformation scene or something like that. Honestly, even magical girls like Sailor Moon were inspired by Kamen Rider. Magical girls, you could say, is the girl version of Kamen Rider, or the you know, the situation or the thing that came out of trying to make a team of superheroes for girls, you know, back in you know, the olden days. And I think it's pretty cool and pretty interesting, and it makes you really appreciate a lot of things that show up in manga and anime. But, you know, if you don't like manga and anime, maybe it doesn't really matter to you at all. So, yeah. Okay, so next we have Aurora Borealis, a very beautiful kind of turquoise, green-blue kind of color here. And to match this, this beautiful ink that I really, really like, we're going to match it with one of my favorite manga. This is Witch Hat Atelier, which is a medieval fantasy type story, kind of a little bit in the vein of Harry Potter or something like that, but also very different and very much its own. And that really tries to show the importance of art and writing tools through the use of its magic, but also to try to show kind of this difficulty difficulty and responsibility that comes with these powers, right? So in this world in Witch Hat Atelier, we follow this girl, Coco, who wants to be magical, who wants to be a wizard or a witch. Well, actually, witch, that's the name for all of them. But sadly, she was not born with the ability. However, the truth is that the ability of magic is actually the ability of drawing and the ability of conjuring designs through very careful writing. And so the reality is that witches have hidden this ability away and forced it to seem like it's a bloodline thing in order to avoid the problems that happened in the distant past, which is that people with magic started experimenting on other people and created these horrible magics that created, you know, beasts and demons and all sorts of things. And so modern witches hide their powers or hide the ability to use magic from others. And so Coco accidentally discovers this ability on her own through this kind of convoluted plot in order to bring down the current establishment of witches. And she accidentally turns her mother to stone. And so a witch is there to see this happen and takes her in order to avoid, you know, the difficulty that Coco will have to deal with following this, but also to make sure that they can guide Coco down the right path now that she has this ability. And it's not like you can put the lightning back in the bottle, right? Or the genie back in the bottle. And so she has to be trained now that she has this ability. So it's very, very interesting. It's really, really good. And the art style here is phenomenal. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. And it's just so insanely interesting and very good. The paneling here is insanely interesting and very detailed and kind of different from what you're used to in manga and honestly what you're used to in Western comics as well. So here's the first one here. We are going to have the moment where Coco is brought in to be a witch. This is her teacher, Master Keyfree. And then we have this moment here that I really like because I love this character so much. She says, I like it when people tell me thanks, so thank you for your thanks. And I think that's very fun and very interesting. And this character, Tetia, I think is her name, is very, very fun and very interesting. I quite like them a lot. And if we still need more, we'll do this last scene here where it says, everyone's unsteady when using a new tool. If that's how it is, then I'll just switch up to a tool I am used to, and my fingers will be free to dance as they please, perfectly free. So I really like this scene because it's the moment that magic clicks for Coco. The moment when she realizes, hey, I might not have the skills that all the other witches have, but I have my own. And with those skills, I can make magic the same as they can. And it's really, really good. I really like this scene. So we'll see because honestly, I had 3 different codes for each of them. And it's turning out to be a lot more writing than I thought. So yeah. So there you go. That's it. That's the quotes there that I'm going to use. Let's switch over to the more direct view and do the swatch and do the writing. And I'm going to be using a Jinhao 82 in ivory to do that. So let's jump in right here. Make sure that I have the same zoom for every situation here. So let's see. Diamine, Aurora Borealis. It's very hard to write. And we're gonna have Witch Hat, Atelier or something. It's a French word. It means, where things are made. And who knows how to pronounce it, right? So, yeah. Let me do the swatch really quick. Sorry, I had to clean the brush. Oh, let's hope I don't spill any ink. I really would not like to do that. Okay, so this one is coming out a lot darker. I think I got way more ink on this turn than previously, but that's all right. Once it dries, it'll look a lot more similar to those. So yeah, I think I just got a lot more ink this time. Well, yeah, it's a very interesting color. It has this like reddish sheen to it. And I'll show you closer once we finish with this stuff. So yeah, I might actually end up doing this as a 2-part video because it's taking a lot longer than I thought. So yeah, let's get into the writing sample here. And yeah, even though I really want to do that other one, I don't think I'm going to do it because it's just too much writing, right? So yeah, there you go. I'm going to do one more because I think it should fit in here. Maybe not, actually. Yeah, I don't think it'll fit, but let me pull this back so that we can see this stuff. So obviously the Aurora Borealis isn't really dry yet, but you can still look at Diamine Jet Black there. It has this kind of sheen to it, but I honestly can't tell you what color it would be. Honestly, it might be some sort of red. And then Green Black. There you go. And Aurora Borealis right there. Honestly, this came out a lot darker than the other two, which I don't like. I would have really liked to see the consistency there across all of them, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. So, yeah, let me see if I can fit the last one here, which would be Twilight. Just so I can have all of them. And, I mean, I don't know if I can do it on the back. It should be fine. I should be able to keep writing on the back here. So, yeah, there you go. Okay, so like I was saying, we're going to be looking at Twilight here. And this one is a really interesting ink. I really like it. It has this kind of, I don't know, like dusky feel to it, which is maybe because it's called Twilight. I don't know. But I really like this one a lot. Very similar to Aurora Borealis in the sense that it's an ink that I wasn't expecting to like, but that I really, really loved. And I like it in any pen, which is quite different from another ink that I'm going to talk about here soon, which was one that I didn't like at all, except for when I put it in a pen. And I realized that, hey, in a pen, it looks real nice. It's just when I was swatching it, I didn't like how it looks. So, yeah, there's Twilight. And to match with this one, we're going to be going over another one of my favorite manga here, which is Drifting Dragons. And this one is a fantasy series. It also is a series that focuses on food, or this aspect of food, which is, you know, kind of difficult to kind of pinpoint. I can't really say that it's called the food genre, or the foodie genre, or maybe even the gourmet genre. The point is that it's a food manga, which is honestly a genre that we really should have more things of, or more things that kind of go into this genre in English, because usually we just have cooking shows and, you know, cooking channel shows, like diners, drive-ins, and dives. And I guess we have a lot of food-related a lot of food-related YouTube videos, but a lot of them are just recipes, and the ones that are not recipes also kind of have like a scientific lean to them. In manga, you can get all of that stuff, but also it's about the adventure and the feelings that food beget. The fact that food is an essential aspect of culture, but also an essential aspect of, life, and also something that brings all sorts of emotions. It's honestly, it's more like Ratatouille. When Remy discovers food, and when the evil guy eats the ratatouille for the first time, and he gets sent back to his childhood. Food manga usually focuses more on that side of things than the recipe side of things. However, a lot of food manga do come with recipes, and in this case, this one that deals with fantasy, foods, has recipes in the back of each chapter that help you, decipher. Hey, even though this is a fake food, it is a real recipe. You switch out the fantasy elements, which in this case is dragon tail, for a piece of steak. And actually, it tells you right here. Let me see where it does. Well, one of them does tell you switch it out for chicken or meat or beef, but this one is clearly supposed to be steak. So yeah, I thought it told you, but it doesn't. But yeah, the first thing here is this one, this quote here that explains, the life of a draker, which is very analogous to something like, Deadliest Catch, or maybe kind of something like whalers. They are analogous to whalers, which, maybe is a contentious issue, but the way it's treated here is very respectfully, I think. And yeah, so I wanted to look at this one here, which is, there was just nothing left for me on land. I had nowhere to go on the ground, so I learned how to fly, which I think is a really interesting sentiment. Maybe not one that is particularly positive, but the thing that it shows is that, hey, you might have a rough life, but you're going to, find a place to fit in eventually. You just have to look for it, right? And honestly, the one that I actually want to use is this one, which is a little prayer that drakers say to dragons when they're killing them. And I think it's taken from this race of dragon hunters that we get to meet in later volumes. And it says, return to the clouds and ride upon fair winds once more, as a way to thank them, right? There's also this other one here, which I think I'll also add, which is, I'll hunt them, butcher them, and eat them. That's what straking's all about. And honestly, I like this quote because it reminds me of that one quote in Lord of the Rings when they're talking about potatoes. They're like, boil them, smash them, put them in a stew. It just has that same vibe because this character is really, really crazy about dragons. So there you go. Those are some of the selection here. Then we're gonna go with the first one, and then with the ones on the last page. So let me do the swatch and the writing, and let's get right to it. So I'm gonna be using this Jinhao 80, and this one has a Lamy nib because I needed to use the nib that comes with this in something else. Okay. So hopefully I can fit this here because I would really, really like to do that. So this is Diamine, how do you spell Twilight? Twilight. Okay. And this is Drifting Dragons. And let's do the swatch first. Wait. Okay, good. This one turned out a lot similar to the original ones, which is much better. So yeah, but it made it as big as the other one. So that'll make me upset in a different way, but at least it'll look similar to the earlier ones. So yeah. There we go. Let's actually start with the the two quotes that I really liked near the middle of the book, and it's gonna have to be enough if it doesn't fit. It says, "I'll hunt him. Butcher him. And eat them." What? And okay, perfect. It fit exactly on one page, which is nice. So there you go. That's the first half. I'm gonna let this dry and then I'll come back and finish up the video later. Okay, we're back, and we're gonna be looking at Writer's Blood now. So as you can see, I picked this book that has basically almost the exact same color there. Now this is the third book in the series, but I will still tell you about what the series is. So we're gonna be using this Jinhao 80. This one has the normal nib that comes with the pen originally. And like I said, we're gonna be looking at Soul Leveling. Now, Soul Leveling is a story. It's actually from Korea. Initially released online as a web novel on a web novel website, which is a pretty popular way of people for people to read novels in Asia. It's kind of similar to, I guess it'd be like similar to fan fiction. Or something like Wattpad or something like that. But the point is that it was there, and it was popular enough to get released in physical form, and it was also given a comic book adaptation. And the comic book adaptation is actually really good. It's actually what pushed this into popularity outside of Korea, because it was just that good. But Soul Leveling is a story about this world where people have supernatural abilities. They unlocked them after the world suddenly started having these portals open up around it. So these portals released magic into the world, and so humans reacted to this magic, and some of them developed skills, and they were ranked in certain levels depending on how skillful they became after their awakening. Our main character, Jin Woo Sung, actually is the lowest of the low. He's a D ranker, and he's the weakest out of the D rankers in Korea. And honestly, I think he was the weakest in the world. And one day, he goes into a dungeon, kind of a standard practice for, these adventurers. And it turns out that this dungeon is different from the usual dungeons. And so there's a test, and Jinwoo is the only one that passes it. And so he awakens a new skill. He alone in the world is the only person that can also level up his skills naturally. And so he has this video game system, this lit RPG system, that helps him level up his skills. And so he goes from 0 to hero, and he kind of gets a little bit edgy and a little bit dark about the way he goes about things. But generally speaking, he is doing it for a good cause. And eventually the story evolves beyond that and leads into this very interesting, interdimensional, kind of like aliens invading the world kind of thing. That's very, very cool. And it's really, really good. I like it a lot. It's a very good series. And the fact that it's available in both novel and comic book format is awesome. Bang for your buck, the novel's better. But in terms of like overall enjoyment, you might like the manga a little bit better. I like both equally. But I like the manga, the novel more than the manga or more than the comic book, because it allows me to get through a lot more of the story at a much better pace, right? So there you go. That's Soul Leveling. And the one quote that we're going to be looking at here is this paragraph here: Song of Rage, Song of Strength, Song of Giants, Song of Dragon Fire. With that spell cast, the shaman grew until it was close to 10 meters tall. Vigor flowed through its body as its strength, agility, stamina, and confidence all shot up. Soon the shaman was swiping away shadow soldiers with its huge arms. Then it took a deep breath and boom! The shaman spit out a blackish red flame. So there you go. That's what we're going to be looking at here. And that's it for that. So here's Rider's Blood. Let's do the writing sample. And the, I forgot what order I did them, even though I did it like 30 minutes ago. So, whatever. Let's do the writing sample first. Let's do Diamine. Rider's Blood. This is solo leveling. That means light novel. That's what LN means. And here is the swatch. Nice. Looks really good when you swatch it. It's not my favorite color in the pen. It feels like a weaker version of Oxblood. Although when you really look at the color, it's quite different. It's a lot more wine colored than Oxblood. And I really like it. It's just, well, it doesn't have that like powerful vibe that Oxblood does. So honestly, I think I'm just biased towards Oxblood. That's one of my favorite inks overall, and it's actually one of my earliest inks that I ever bought. So it has a special place in my heart, regardless of whether it's you know, that good or not. So yeah. Let's see. So yeah, solo leveling is really, really cool. Oops. It's a very good example of the lit RPG genre, which is a genre that is relatively recent. It became popular in Russia before it became popular anywhere else. And for a long time, I remember seeing a lot of people just translating Russian novels. Eventually, the rest of the Asian continent picked it up. And it became integrated into a lot of things, right? So, yeah, technically speaking, though, the lit RPG genre has existed for a long time. And there's kind of different ways that you can look at it. So if you think about, like, the Dragonlance novels, you can technically say that those are lit RPG in spirit because they are based on the tabletop RPG game. But they don't really have the mechanics of a video game or of an RPG, right? So even though they are based on those things, they don't really embody that aspect of them. So most people don't really think that they are. Then there was this novel that I read when I was a kid called Epic. I don't remember the author, but I remember that it was about a kid that got put in a video game. Oops. My thoughts and what I was writing got crossed here. And I wrote Epic, but it was about this kid that got kind of stuck in a video game, and he had to live his life out there. And eventually he does come back to the real world, if I remember correctly. And then, you know, there was a few different Nickelodeon and Disney movies that were about people getting into video games, kind of like, you know, Spy Kids and stuff like that. So it is a genre that has existed. It's just one that wasn't really popular. And in the manga and anime community, it didn't really become popular until it was joined with the isekai genre, which is basically portal fantasy, although it's a very specific type of portal fantasy. And it became part of this series called Sword Art Online. And while Sword Art Online is more of a lit RPG series than it is an isekai series, for a long time, the manga and anime community thought of them as the same thing, and honestly, they still do. So I usually try to endeavor to you know, distinguish them, but it's quite hard to do so. Most people kind of get stuck in the way of doing things. Sorry, I was looking at this and I realized that I skipped a bunch of text. So let's just cross this out. And let me finish my thought and then I'll finish writing. So what was I saying? Yeah, a lot of people get stuck in the way of things because of how they initially found out about the genre, and so they kind of get stuck in the fact that isekai and lit RPG are the same thing. They're different. However, there's a lot of isekai that have lit RPG aspects because the lit RPG aspect of things actually allows for very quick world building, very simple world building, because everyone understands what a video game medieval fantasy world looks like and how it interacts with the characters. And so a lot of authors in light novels, which are supposed to be pulp novels, use it as a crutch to kind of, develop their world quickly without having to focus on it, and mostly focus on characters and character interactions, which is what the Japanese audience feels like is most important, or the stuff that they like the most is usually that. And so it's rare that you see many light novels that are isekai and lit RPG that are good at world building, but there are a few. There's Overlord, and there's the Slime isekai. The time I got reincarnated as a slime, and there's a few others, but usually it's more of a quick, easy way to kind of get the story moving without having to spend 200 pages doing world building at the beginning, like most Western epic fantasy type stories. So yeah, very cool stuff. I really enjoy lit RPG and isekai novels. Soul Leveling is purely a lit RPG, although you could say that eventually it does become a reverse isekai, but it doesn't really matter. It's not important. It's mostly purely a lit RPG novel. So there you go. Let me actually finish writing this, and then we'll move on to the next thing. This is supposed to be meters. And I think I'll leave it at that, and we'll finish it off there. So there you go. That's Soul Leveling. So we have 2 more to go, and hopefully you guys are still interested in the video. If you're not, it's fine. I hope you enjoyed the bits that I showed you so far before you click the waves. Okay, so next we're going to be looking at Midnight, which is the ink that I mentioned earlier that I didn't really care for when I swatched it, but now that I use it in a pen, I quite like it. I think it's cool. It's not the best thing ever. I still like Oxford Blue a little bit better, but Midnight is a little bit darker looking in the pen that I use it in, so I do like it a little bit, but not as much as Oxford Blue. I think that Oxford Blue is a much better blue for my purposes, and if I want a blue with character, I'll probably go with Twilight or Aurora Borealis, because those are much more interesting colors than this one, right? So there you go, that's Midnight Blue, and the manga that's going to go with it is Finland Saga. This is a beautiful, very interesting manga. If you're interested in stuff like Vikings, or The Last Kingdom, or Barbarians on Netflix and Amazon Prime, you should read this, because it is more or less exactly like those things. It's a story about this boy who's a Viking boy. He's from Greenland? No, Iceland. One of those two. I think he's from Greenland. And he kind of gets embroiled in a cycle of violence that his father had escaped, but was pushed back into, and then his father dies, and so this boy becomes a violent murderer. And then he fights and he fights and he fights, and then one day the fights stop to mean anything, and he realizes his mistakes, and he tries to be a better person, but he's haunted by the reality of his situation, by the reality of his deeds and stuff like that. And it's really, really good. Makoto Yukimura did an amazing job with this. The only thing that isn't the best is that the story starts with a very cool, badass, action-heavy kind of thing. And then it goes back to the origin story of the character. We catch up to him as an adult again. And then when the story, goes through its paces, it switches from this very action-heavy story to a very introspective story. And it loses a lot of people when it becomes introspective in volume 5 or 6. However, for me, I thought it was the most important thing, that aspect, that change in the story from this action-oriented fighting manga to this very serious, sad, melancholic introspection about violence and about the fact that violence affects us all very negatively is very, very good. And then there's these scenes where the character is just being pacifistic. He is, choosing not to hurt anyone. And somehow they're the most impactful scenes in the manga, even though we've had amazing action sequences before. So really, really good stuff. Don't listen to anyone that says it's boring. It's really, really good stuff. So yeah, the anime also does a good job at actually starting from the origin story instead of starting at the action sequences. And so it's a much more gentle kind of development towards the story, whereas the manga jumps in the middle of the story and then goes back. And so it's a little bit jarring in the manga, but I think it was done for the purpose of, staying in print, because the manga world is very, very difficult to get into and to stay relevant in. So yeah, here we're going to be looking at a few scenes. So here we have the introduction to Finland, where, what's this guy's name? Eric, I think. Crap, I forgot his name, but he's an important guy. He's actually the main character of Vikings Valhalla. What's his name? Eric something, I think. It has to be something like that. Let me see if it says back here. Leif Erikson. There you go. It's Leif Erikson. He's an old man, and he's telling the kids about Finland Saga, or Finland, and Saga is the story about Finland, right? So, yeah, and then he says, and that's when I found it, a new world full of ripe fruits and rippling plains. I built a cottage upon this new land and called it Finland. I really like this scene because it's very cool. Then we have this other one here, where Thorfinn finds his father's weapon and wants to use it, and his father sees him. And he explains to him, do you want a sword for Thorfinn? A sword is a tool for killing. Who are you going to kill with this sword, he says, right? And Thorfinn, in a very childish way, says enemies. And then Thor's, his father, is like, dude, who's your enemy? There is no one. You have no enemies. No one has enemies. There is no one that you should hurt. And this is the philosophy of his father, and it's the philosophy that makes him a true warrior. And so it's the thing that Thorfinn wants to find, and that all the characters that Thorfinn knows that also know Thor's have to contend with. The fact that Thor's managed to beat them at being a warrior, even though he was pacifistic, and it's really, really good. And then there's this scene where Thor's decides that he has to fight, even though he doesn't want to, because there's no other way around it. And he kind of gives up on his rule for a second, in order to put pressure on this character before he goes back to his situation, right? He says, "Forgive me, Askeladd. I can no longer spare you the brunt of my strength." And Askeladd responds, "I'm glad to have met you, Thor." So Thor's has a very good impact on a lot of people, and it's very, very interesting. And yeah, so I think we're going to go with this one, with this scene here in the middle. And if I have time, or if I have enough space, I'll go with one of the other two. So yeah. Here's the pen. It's a Jinhao 82. This one's in black. This is Diamine Midnight. And this is Finland Saga. And let's do the swatch. This is very dark looking, even though it's not that hardcore, honestly. I don't know why it looks so dark. Let me make sure that it doesn't get onto the other stuff that we wrote. So here you go. Oh, crap, I went through the paper. Oops. Here we go. And we have one more before we finish the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. So finally, we're about to be done. We have the last ink here, which is Ancient Copper. And I'm going to use this Coeco Sport in burgundy with a gold clip in order to write. And the manga that's going to match to it is this big honking book called Spriggan. This is the deluxe edition. This was released when Netflix started airing a new adaptation of this story. This is from somewhere in the 70s or 90s, or 70s or 80s, and it kind of has that like Terminator vibe to it. And it's about this organization who employs these basically super soldier type people called Spriggans, and they're in charge of keeping certain items of huge cultural, social, and warlike importance that are ancient technologies and ancient things that have been left on Earth. And so these brigands have to fight against different organizations in order to avoid having these special things fall into enemy hands, into people that would misuse them. And so we follow this main character whose name is Ominai Yu as he goes through all of his action adventures and tales of super spies and alien relics, like it said right here. It's pretty interesting. It doesn't really have very deep things to say in it, so most of my quotes here, the two quotes that I got, mostly have to do with with the things that they're trying to protect, because they have this like old vibe to them, not necessarily deep or interesting like the ones that I've used before. And I think that's just mostly because of the way that the story is focused on action and cool scenes over, you know, true substance. Like, there is some element of substance there, and there is kind of this message of, you know, treat the world better, treat your fellow man better, but it is all bogged down in this kind of action set piece kind of vibe that it has to it. So, you know, it kind of, mileage may vary, but I don't think it's the best manga ever in that sense. But it's a fun read, and it's really, really enjoyable. So we're going to be looking at this quote here that explains where one of the relics lies. And it shows this cool place in Palenque. And I wanted to pick this because, one, I think it fits that ancient theme of the ink, but also because I'm from Mexico, and it's really interesting to see Mexico represented in Japan in certain ways, because it feels like it's something that Japan wouldn't really care about, but somehow they end up kind of representing it over, you know, quite often in their manga and in their media. So I quite like that. I think it's interesting. So there you go. And yeah. I really need to work on my transition words and stuff like that, because I feel like I say and yeah a lot. And honestly, it's because there really isn't anything else to say. I can't think of a good transition phrase that, you know, works and that doesn't feel like I'm trying hard. So oh, and yeah is what I'm gonna stick with. So there we go. It's honestly not really my favorite pen. I like it for the size, but honestly, for the size and kind of ease of use and the fact that I can carry it with me, I think the Jinhao 80s, 82s do a much better job, or do a job just as good as this, but also are much more comfortable. So yeah, you have Diamine, I don't know why it sounded really southern there. Diamine, Ancient Copper. I mean, I live in Texas, so I am southern, but it felt like it came out real weird. And the manga is Spriggan. Do we spell it with 2 G's? Yes, 2 G's. Spriggan. And let's do the ink sample. And I've managed to stay pretty ink free, except for that little bit there, but that's all right. Honestly, the fact that I'm not covered in ink from head to toe is a miracle, so quite happy with that. Oh, it looks like that was not enough, so let's grab a little bit more. There we go. I'll probably get a nice two-tone look to it. I'm very happy to finally be able to you know, feel like I've used these enough and shown them off, so now I can go put them away. There we go. I love the feedback of this pen. It feels very loud and scratchy in a way that I really enjoy. But the problem is that everything else about this pen is quite difficult to enjoy for more than 2 or 3 seconds at a time. So I don't know. I understand that that's kind of more or less the purpose of this pen. I mean, this pen is basically the golf pencil of the pen world, right? But I really wish it had better, you know, vibes to it. It felt better in the hand. I feel like I'm probably going to end up getting a Parkeo, you know, which is like a student pen that Kaweco has. Mostly because that one's a longer barrel, and I feel like I'm going to enjoy that a lot more. And I'll still get to have this very nice, very scratchy nib that I like from Kaweco. It's just everything else about this pen is horrible. Like, these are sharp and annoying, you know, the things, and holding it back here, it feels much more natural to me, but it makes it feel very unwieldy, so I don't know. I feel that's just an issue that a lot of guys have. I've seen a lot of videos in the fountain pen community, and usually the people that like the Keigo sport are usually women. I guess because most of them have smaller hands. I don't really know. I don't think it matters. I don't think it's a gender thing. It's just something I've noticed before. And if most guys feel as uncomfortable holding this pen as I do, I can kind of understand that. So yeah, Temple of the Inscriptions. But the color that comes out of this, thanks to the ink, is amazing. I really, really like it. So underneath, a stone. Honestly, maybe I should have used JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for this ink, because everything I'm writing right now feels very similar to something that happens in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. But I feel like for that series, purples and greens would have been better, and I just don't have an abundance of those colors, so I didn't really feel like using that. Also, I wanted to make sure that it was all physical media this time around. In the future, it might not be. I might make new ink exploration videos where I do comic books or movies or, you know, song lyrics. And sometimes if I come back to manga, I probably won't do all physical volumes because most of the manga that I read is actually digital through some of the Viz Media apps. There's two. There's one that's Shonen Jump, which is the main, or one of the biggest magazines in Japan that have manga, because manga gets released very similar to comics. They do it once a week, whereas comics in the US are once a month. And they sell them in these big magazines that have 20 different series in them. And each chapter is 20 pages, so you get 400 pages worth of content once a week for a pretty cheap price. In a quite big looking package. Of course, the paper is really shitty, but most people read those and toss them out, or, you know, resell them to someone else. And then they wait, if they really like the series, they wait to collect it, right? But in order to kind of have that same feeling of, like, you know, once a week, you get to enjoy all of your manga. In the US, they decided to do digital apps instead of wasting the effort of creating a magazine, because the US really doesn't work on magazines anymore. And it's really good. You pay, I think it's $5 for the Shonen Jump app and $3 for the Viz, the Viz app. And they have different series available on them. It's the same company, but for the sake of, like, keeping the Shonen Jump line intact, they decided to make a separate app that has all of the other stuff that's not Shonen Jump. And it's really, really good. I think for $8 total, actually, it might be $6. Because I said it was $5, but I think it's actually $2.99. So for $6, you get access to, you know, hundreds of series, and you can read up to 100 chapters a day, which is a lot of chapters, actually. Because even though they're only 20 pages, you get tired after a while, right? So it's really good. If you're interested in manga, I recommend you check it out first through the digital apps, and then pick up physical manga. Because it's just much easier, and it'll be a lot more economically viable for more people, right? And honestly, because with the digital apps, you can read the first 3 chapters for free, and you can read the latest 3 chapters for free. So you get access to an introduction to the story, and then from there you can decide if you like the story, and then you can continue reading it, and then you can stop paying the subscription service. And just stay with the latest 3 chapters, and you just have to make sure to stay, you know, up to date on it. So really good stuff there. So let me let this page dry, and then we'll come back and look at it, and I'll show you all of the things with much better lighting, so you guys can actually see what the colors look like. All right, so let's finish off the video here. Let me show you the full page here. Chip black there, and has like a silverish or reddish sheen to it. I don't know if you can pick it up though. This is a Tomoe rivet paper, by the way. Very thin, very easy to see through. Here is green black. Honestly, it's a lot more green than black, but I quite like it. I think I like it better than ebony green, from Private Reserve, which is my go-to green black ink because it's a lot easier on my pens. It's easier to clean. It doesn't smell bad, and it doesn't have this like sticky kind of resiny feel to it. So you know, that's just because it's Diamine, and Diamine inks are insanely good. We have Aurora Borealis. Love this. You can't really pick up any sheen on this page, but I've seen it before. It kind of is there very lightly. It's a red sheen. I like it a lot. I love this color. It's so interesting and very, very cool. And we have Diamine Twilight. And like I said, I really like the feeling of this blue. It's dusky. It's kind of desaturated. It almost feels like blue-gray. And it also gives me this vibe of like, I don't know, like a swamp or something, or like some weird like body of water that's very difficult to see through. And I like that a lot. Here's Rider's Blood. Like I said, it's like a weaker version of Oxblood. And I'm sorry I have so many mistakes in this one. I just was not paying attention while we were talking. Here's Midnight. Like I said, it has a very interesting like reddish, yellowish, black sheen there. Almost reminds me of like Ravenclaw or something. It has that kind of like blue and bronze kind of feel to it. And I really like how it looks on the page. I don't like the sheen. It's too bright for my preferences, but the color here is quite good. It's nice and dark, but it also has this kind of washed out feeling to it here in the edges that I really don't like. It's not really my vibe. Diamine Ancient Copper though, I love this color. I really like how dark it looks in certain areas, and I like that it's an orange. It's an interesting, you know, bright color, but because it has that darkness to it, it stays kind of interesting and palatable. So yeah, honestly, the brightest color that I have is Diamine Aurora Borealis. At least the brightest color that I like that I own, because I have a Pelican Purple or Pelican Violet, and that one is a bit too bright for me. It's just too I don't know, it's too bright and I don't like it. But here we go. Aurora Borealis is my favorite out of all of these. Twilight's probably the second favorite, and then Ancient Copper. And I think that that's going to change based on which one I end up using more. But overall, very good stuff there. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to change it up for following videos of this sort. I'm definitely going to do less inks per video because 7 inks was a lot. And this video is going to end up being like an hour long. It's probably not going to be a video that many people are going to watch, but I wanted to put it out there. I wanted to make it so I felt like I was kind of doing something new and interesting. So hopefully you guys did find it to be interesting. And if you have any commentary or any ways to change this so it's easier to kind of watch and something simpler to watch, let me know down below. I'm always open to suggestions. And if you're a fan of manga and fountain pens and you somehow want to end up recommending either some fountain pen colors or some manga to combine with those colors, let me know down in the comments. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.